In the poem She Was a Phantom of Delight by William Wordsworth, the poet describes his wife and his reflections on her. The 3 stanzas in the poem depict the 3 points in their developing relationship: when they first meet, as they begin to know each other, and after they are married. Now, in the first stanza, when Wordsworth first meets her, he thinks she is lovely, as he describes how her eyes are as stars of twilight fair. Now, this is an example of a simile. He also describes how her hair is also beautiful and like the dark of the night, how he describes how, like twilights too, her dusky hair. Now, these are both examples of similes. Now, the reason that Wordsworth uses these 2 similes in these 2 lines is to indicate her unreachable qualities. An interesting choice of word is also a lovely apparition. Now, as we know, an apparition is a kind of ghost, and what it indicates is how she's almost like an illusion. When he first saw her, she was like an illusion, almost as if she wasn't there, as if she was a ghost, not a real person. And he also describes how her shape is like that of a graceful dancer. He describes how she's a dancing shape. In other words, she's like a beautiful, graceful dancer in terms of her physical shape. All of this surprises him, and as he mentions, it startles him, almost haunts him. So her beauty not only startles him, it almost frightens him because of the nature of her beauty in terms of her physical image. He hasn't got to know her yet. This is just from a distance, and it's interesting that one of the first words in the first line is this word phantom, because it again alludes to this idea of her being a ghost, an illusion, someone that's not really there, too good to be true, too beautiful. And we have natural descriptions as well, so we have the twilight and the dusk. The stanza that follows describes how he feels about her as he gets to know her. Now, in the next stanza, he describes how he sees her upon nearer view. Again, she's a spirit, but this time she's a woman, an ordinary person. Now, he describes her after they're married. Her household motions are light and free. And what this means is that she's actually a good housewife. She works hard and does household chores. She's not excessively bright or good. She is an ordinary woman, but she's capable of guiding the poets. She has a wonderful countenance. And as I mentioned, she's not too bright or good. She is an ordinary woman. And this is important because the idealization of the first stanza is brought down a little bit here. And she is, for him, after getting to know her a little bit better, an ordinary woman. But she is someone who also guides him as well. Now, this is interesting in that the lines that follows, we get this idea of the relationship itself. He talks about the praise, the blame, the love, the kisses, the tears, and the smiles. As he gets to know her better, then, we see that he starts to feel her womanly qualities. She would move here and there in his home lightly and freely while doing housework, and that's why we get this idea of motions light and free. And she has transient sorrows. She's not overly self-pitying. She has simple wants. She has praise. She does blame sometimes. She shows love, kisses. Sometimes she shows tears, and sometimes she shows smiles. All of this indicate this idea of her being an ordinary woman. All her actions here are reasonable. Her desires are mild, not excessive. And this second stanza really gives us an idea of her being this ordinary woman who is a good housewife, not too bright or good. It's a step away from the idealization of the first stanza. The third stanza then talks about the later stages of the relationship and how he feels when he's properly got to know her, when he sees her with eyes serene, and he sees what makes her tick, what makes her beat, the very pulse of the machine. Now, of course, this line here, where she's described as a machine, is again a metaphor. He's talking about what drives her, what motivates her. He's been able to see into this now. He describes how she's a traveller between life and death. And both of these are metaphors. The very pulse of the machine and a traveller between life and death. These are both metaphors which indicate that she is an ordinary person. She will live and she will die. She is no longer this ghost of the first stanza, rather she is a person. Yes, she's an ordinary woman. She's not too bright or good. She's ordinary, however, she has shown endurance. These are all her qualities of her soul, if you like. She has shown foresight. She's been able to tell him and advise him on things he should do and things he shouldn't do. She's sometimes been a strength for him when perhaps he's felt weak or needed a little bit of support. And she has shown skill. And this is what, for the poet, makes her a perfect woman. Not the idealization of her wondrous hair and her sparkly eyes. It's the person she is inside that he has seen by the third stanza that makes her this perfect woman. Because she has these qualities within her, within the very pulse of the machine. And it is here that Wordsworth successfully conveys his discovery of what makes his wife truly beautiful. Having begun with a distance view that offers an illusion, he closes up to a more realistic and spiritual appreciation of his wife. And we've seen how in this poem he's gone through several different changes, but it ends with, and it is perhaps worth noting this, it ends with a spiritual appreciation of his wife. And these are all these qualities that we've seen here in this particular line. This is what makes his wife, in his mind, truly beautiful. The last few lines show that there is still a level of mystery about her. He still calls her a spirit, still and bright, with something of angelic light. So there is, by the end of the third stanza, even though he's got to know her a great deal more from the first stanza, there is still a level of mystery to her. And this is not a negative thing, because it's past the idealization stage. There are still things that he would still like to know about her, and that's fine. What this poem successfully does, in many ways, is show the developing stages of a relationship, particularly a marriage. And it's a healthy development, not an unhealthy one. Because every relationship starts with a level of idealization. This then moves on to a level of realism, followed by appreciation. And that's what this poem wonderfully shows. But the final thing perhaps worth mentioning is the rhyme scheme of the entire poem. The rhyme scheme is AA, BB, CC, DD, EE. Of course, this unifies the poem into couplets, symbolizing Wordsworth and his wife.